Hello, Wagwan. Welcome to another episode of Design to Win. I'm your host, C. Ruth Taylor, and this is a show where we give you the roadmap to win at life with a little Caribbean flavor. And coming up in today's show is going to be a very interesting interview with Marva Smith. She is the co-author of the newly released book, She Writes for Him, Black Voices of Wisdom. This she co-authored with 20 other Christian women, and she is going to be helping us career women to win. She's going to be talking about thriving beyond 9 to 5. So I want you to stay tuned. But before Marva comes on, let me tell you a little bit more about her and her background. So Marva Smith is from the British Virgin Islands, and she lives in Tortola. She is a management and leadership consultant, a work and life strategist. And I said earlier that she is a new author. As a certified life breakthrough coach, she is passionate about equipping and inspiring women to thrive beyond the 9 to 5. And she does this through her courses, coaching programs, and her community Free to Thrive. I was checking out her website and it just reminds me of my life as a career coach and some of the issues that we have to deal with. So she's here to help us as career women, to give us some insights and tips about winning at work, winning at home, and winning in the different eras of our lives. So, Marva, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ruth. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm excited about our conversation today, and I can't wait to get started.
Awesome. Good to have you. And as usual, we like to begin this show by asking our guests to tell us a little bit about their homeland, maybe what's their favorite thing, and why should persons visit your island?
I'm here in the British Virgin Islands. I live on an island called Tortola, which is the main island where the capital is. And so, what I love about the BVI, as we call it, is that it is really such a diverse place. We have, we say in our geography books, 60 islands, rocks, and keys. A lot of them are rocks and keys, but a lot of the main islands, capital, the populated areas, and so on. And really, it's such a beautiful place, Ruth. One of the things that I love is that everywhere you turn, is a postcard view. Because we have this sort of archipelago of islands, you get a view of another island. And hardly ever do you see, except on Anegada, one of our other islands, you usually would see another island in the distance because we're so closely connected and you can island hop from one to the other. So it really gives such a rich experience. So if you get tired of Tortola, you go over to Virgin Gorda, or you go over to Jocelyn Dyke, or you go over to Anegada. And so you get that very rich experience, that very rich Caribbean flavor. So I love that.
Awesome. I haven't been to BVI yet, and now I'm going to add that to my list of places to visit because it sounds like a writer's paradise.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into it, Marva. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and why thriving beyond 9 to 5 has become a passion of yours and a message you want to get across to career women.
When you think about living in the Caribbean, I think a lot of us think that, we have this laid back life and everything is perfect and you live in paradise and you just relax on the beach all day. But that's not always the case. For us career women, we are very driven, especially in the Caribbean. I find we just kind of, maybe sometimes we feel that need when we move to the US or we're in a US university, we feel that need to prove ourselves almost. I don't know if that's a thing, but certainly I felt that myself because I actually went to the US for university on a scholarship from my government. And there was this sort of innate pressure and encouragement, if you will, to really do well. And so I was very driven. I went after my career with all everything I had, and that was great. But what I found, Ruth, is that wherever you're coming from, whatever your story is, if you're driven and passionate about something and you go after it with all your heart, sometimes you get that thing and you realize, well, hang on a second. I don't even know if this is what I want right now. And so we need to be in a constant state of reassessing. And that's what I found for me. So I've had a career in architecture and urban design. I went to an Ivy League university in New York. I went to Columbia University. I had the master's degree. I had the career. I rose to the top of my field. And then I realized, wait a second. I have my family, my kids are young, my husband is there, he's the one picking them up from school because I'm working late. It was just so many things going on, and I felt like my priorities were out of place. Like I was giving my heart and soul to the wrong things, or to the things that were not as important for me anymore. Now, I'm not saying that this is everyone's story, but I certainly found for me that I had to really take a deep look at what was important to me. And I feel that that's something that we can all benefit from. Just really assessing, okay, is this a good fit for me still? You can have your dreams and you can have your goals. And I'm very goal oriented. And even in my coaching, I talk a lot about goals and achieving those things. But let's make sure that we have our priorities in right order.
Okay, very interesting story, Marva, because it can be quite controversial. You are absolutely correct. I know, like in Jamaica, when the studies are done, it shows that, more Jamaican women are in leadership positions than is the norm in many parts of the world. And women struggle with this, and very often we feel we have to choose between our jobs and our family. So is it really possible to have it all? Can you win at work, win in your career, and still win with your family life, or do you have to choose? When you talk about thriving beyond the 9 to 5, what does that look like, and how do we help women who perhaps are facing this kind of dilemma?
I believe it really is an individual choice. And I love to always go back to, what are your priorities? What are your values? What are the things that are important to you? So the decisions that I've made is that really, it might not be the same for everyone else, and it shouldn't be. It's really looking at your own current circumstances and what's important to you. So when we talk about thriving beyond 9 to 5, what I'm really suggesting is that you examine, is it all about work? Is it all about that career? And other areas of your life suffering because of it? Because oftentimes we find that it is. And you have to really, take that look and decide, well, are there changes that you need to make? Are there things that need to be tweaked? Do you need to pivot? In my case, I chose to retire young and pursue my own management consulting business and coaching and so on. Somebody else might stay in the position in the career and make that work. So when it comes to having it all, I really do believe that you can have it all. I don't believe that you can have it all at the same time. I think it's a matter of priorities. For me, at the time, my family was the most important priority. And being in the position that I was at the time, because of the leadership position, it was also a very political position with a lot of pressure and so on. I made that decision that I needed to make certain changes so that my family, my kids at the time when I retired from the government of the Virgin Islands, they were like 5 and 7. And I really wanted to spend more time pouring into them. And the career that I had, it was looking like that was not where I wanted to spend my time all the time. So it was a personal decision, obviously, and I'm not suggesting that everyone else does that. But again, look at your priorities, look at your values, and consider what's important to you in this season.
Okay, that is just powerful. So for women who are struggling, people talk about balance, but I don't hear you emphasizing balance. It's about understanding what are your priorities, your values, and your goals, and then making the decision that needs to be made. So, can we get a little bit more into the nitty gritty
Mhm.
here? Um, how did your husband or family handle your transition? I'm asking because many in the Caribbean, women working is the norm, and sometimes the position of the family is that having one person just being the breadwinner is not gonna work. So how did that affect your family, you stepping back from what I would have believed is a position that would have created great financial freedom and status and different things? How did that impact your family? Um, did it have any negative repercussions? You said you retired early, so even that we need to talk about. But I trust that you're kind of understanding where I'm going with this. For the woman who wants to make that transition, help us through your experience. How did you make that transition practically? What was the impact on your family when you decided that my priority right now is my family and I'm going to leave this position because you are leading in government, doing well? Just talk to us about that.
Yes, I have to say that my husband was very supportive, and I could not have come to this decision without his support because that's really the kind of relationship that we have. And as Christians, I want to make sure that we are first and foremost following God, and that secondly, I am also submitting to my husband and what he sees as, the way that we should go as a family. So that's the first thing I want to put out there, Ruth. So God first, and then my husband and my kids and my family and so on. So in coming to this decision, it took a lot of back and forth, thinking through what was possible, praying through it, and so on. And I felt really tugged in my heart for a very long time because I kept feeling like there must be more to life than what I'm seeing right now. And which is interesting because on the outside, somebody else will look and say, but you have it all. And I did in a sense, but the things that I had were coming at a cost. And so that's what I had to really, again, take a look and see, well, what's going on here? So for the woman who's at that crossroads, I say, go to God and look at what is God saying to you? What is it that God is putting on your heart for you to do or to change or to become? Because that's really where it starts. So in my case, it was a lot of prayerful time, a lot of, speaking with my husband, a lot of tossing around ideas and saying, well, what if? Then going back to the public service and saying, well, what if? Like, how many years do I have? Because I had to even figure that out, right? So I retired at 42, and that is not necessarily the norm, but I started actually quite young, and I had enough years in order to retire, and so that gave me a bit of a foundation financially. Not everybody has that. I fully recognize that. So again, the decision needs to be individual. It needs to be based in some sort of level-headedness, perhaps. But I knew that it was a sacrifice, but it was also a sacrifice that I was willing to make. I also knew that I was stepping out on faith. Like God took me to a certain place in my life, and I knew He wasn't going to leave me hanging. I'm not saying you jump out there and you kind of wait and figure out, well, okay, what next, God? But I knew that He was setting me up in such a way that I couldn't fail. I couldn't fail. And so that was a bit of a reassurance that I had, that I said, okay, this is what I need to do. Now, I didn't retire and stay home and do nothing, right? So that's the other thing. In my case, it's retirement in the technical sense, but it really was a pivot. It was a pivot that said, okay, this is what I'm doing now. This is what my career looks like. This is what work looks like for me. But now I'm going to pivot, and this is what work is going to look like for me. It's not going to be the sort of, pressurized position in the public eye and so on. I'm going to scale back. I'm going to look at something different. I went into training and coaching, and I did, because I had a management and leadership background as well. I was able to really get into that field more fully. But looking at what are the tools that God has given me that I can use moving forward. So I think for the woman who has that kind of question, ask that. Ask that of God. God, what are you calling me to do? What is it that I have in my hands that you want me to use moving forward?
I love it. I love it. I love it on so many levels. Retiring at 42. And then the practical steps, because you're married, you prayed about it, spoke with your husband, and you really searched your heart and made the preparation to transition. And then in your transition, you use the skills to continue to serve others and work. So it was really a pivot. And that is very important. One of the things that we talk about in career coaching is having transferable skills. And so I see that you've been using your transferable skills. And there is another young lady, she's Christian, Nicole Walters, who did a similar thing. She was in a particularly uh well she was particularly well placed in business, corporate business, and she just felt that she also needed to shift. And what she did was she quit her job, in front of 10,000 people on Periscope at the time. But why I'm sharing that is because of the transferable skill. What she started doing was to use the knowledge that she gained in running successful business on a corporate level, and is now teaching others to do that, to bring that corporate level skill to what they do. So you being a leadership and management consultant and working in government, it means that what you're doing through coaching right now, you're transferring those skills. So you're helping women now to lead better lives. Um, it is management on a different level, and that is why I just love what you are sharing. I don't want the show to end without you talking to us about this book that was recently released. The the let me make sure I get the name right. She Writes for Him, Black Voices of Wisdom. Talk to us about that book and your contribution in that book.
Yes, that book recently released within the last few days, weeks, March 16th was the release date. And we have a book where you have 21 Black Christian women coming together, sharing their stories. As it says, she writes for him, she writes for God, right? So we're sharing our stories. A lot of it is about race issues in the US. My story is about going through a storm. My story is called In the Middle of a Storm, because what I find, Ruth, is that no matter where we are in life, no matter, our color or where we live or background or anything, we all will face storms. And the way we approach that storm will really make a difference. So I was sharing about, living in the Caribbean, we're no strangers to hurricanes. I was sharing about a hurricane that we faced here in the British Virgin Islands in 2017, Hurricane Irma, and followed by Hurricane Maria. That really devastated the BVI in a very big way. And so it was my family story, how we got through that in a very brief way, but also tying it back to the story of the Bible story, Peter walking on the water and sinking. When we take our eyes off of Jesus, what happens? And so making that connection with everyone, whatever storm it is you're going through in life, whatever storm you're facing, you can know and be reassured that God is there and He's eager to help you safely through to the other side. It could be that you're facing some racial tension. It could be that you're facing a big decision about your career and what you're going to do. Maybe you're feeling that disconnect, like I was, about God, what is it that you want me to do now? Because this doesn't feel quite right. Or maybe it is a literal storm and you have to figure out how to recover. But having that faith that God will be with you and that he will see you through. And that's my contribution to that book. And I love that it's really rich with stories from women who have walked in different shoes. And so you get this sort of very beautiful picture of how God has been at work in our lives individually and collectively as well.
Okay, I am going to have to get that book. I love having examples of folks who look like us, can relate to our experiences, and I love stories about Christian women thriving in different uh, spheres of influence and maintaining their faith. And I am just, just thinking about what you've just said and even your contribution. I believe at that time, my boss, he had been sent on furlough to BVI during that season. And that was a season when I was a career coach and career development officer. So your story is really resonating. And the point that, wherever you go, God is there and stories are powerful. I am sure those listening want to know more about how they can get in touch with you because perhaps they want to talk to you about retiring early, how you manage family and all kind of stuff. But we know the most important thing is that you are going to teach them how to move from surviving to thriving and thriving beyond 9 to 5. So, Marva, as we bring this interview to a close, it has been just a privilege to just hear your story. I'm inspired. I am pumped up, and so are my listeners. So, tell us, where can we go to find out more about you and what you do and get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch is by starting at my website, marvasmith.com. And from there, you're able to access free resources from, I have a resource library of goal planning resources and tips and so on. Also to be able to connect with me for coaching. So marvasmith.com is the best place to start. On social media, you can find me at Marva T. Smith. So think of T for Thrive at Marva T. Smith on Facebook, on Instagram, on Pinterest, on Twitter, all the places. So you can find me there.
All right. So there you have it, listeners. Make sure you contact her. Women, career women, this episode was specially for you. And as we close out the show, put your hand across your heart and let's say our pledge to win. There's greatness in me. It's possible to live my dreams. It's possible to live my dream. No matter how bad it is or how bad it gets, I'm going to make it. With faith, courage, and consistent action, I'm going to make it. It's not over until I win. Ta for now. Until next time.